Hello. So today we are going to talk about the new enhancement request that we have received for OpenRose application. Let me start by saying that OpenRose is a free and open source requirements management tool. More information about the same can be found at github.com/openrose. Let's look at this enhancement request. So let me move to the repository, OpenRose as a repository, and then under projects we have all the requests here, and this is the request that we should be working on today. Allow users to go to specific record by providing its ID. User should be allowed to navigate to any specific record by just simply providing its ID and then jumping to that record quickly. One liner request from user, and then we have to decide how we will implement this. Let's go to the concept document that we have captured today. In this concept document, we have outlined what all things the GoTo feature should cover. Let me start by saying that OpenRose requirements management tool manages many different types of data, and allowing users to be able to create GoTo links for specific records within the repository would add tremendous value when it comes to improving communication and sharing of data. Now, what are the different types of record that we have in OpenRose? So we have a project. A project can have many item types, and then that item types can have many items with breakdown structure. So you have nested hierarchical linked requirements items under the item type. And if you delete the project, those items which are part of the project becomes an orphaned item. So each record here has a unique identifier. For example, project has a project ID, item type has its ID, requirement has its ID, sub requirement, child requirement, orphan requirements, all of them have its ID. And then when we create a copy or a snapshot of a project or an item type, we create a baseline. Those baseline also contains item type as well as requirements breakdown structure sub-items, and then you decide whether those items are included in the baseline or excluded from the baseline. So in a nutshell, we have these 7 different types of record in OpenRose, and we should be able to provide a GoTo link to any of those items. So we should be able to just pass the ID for either the project, requirement type, requirement item, baseline, requirement baseline item, requirement baseline item type, or orphaned items. Let me jump over to the product and show you that here is the project, and each project has its own ID here. When I go into a project, let me open charity fundraising project in tree view. Then each project has several item type, including parking lot. And when I click on an item type, we have the ID for the item type. Same way, when I click on a particular record, which is nothing but a requirement item record, we can see the ID of that requirement item as well. On the other hand, when I go to the project in the baseline, we have the baseline ID. Within the baseline, we have item type, which is the baseline item type, and there is an ID for the same. And then we have a specific baseline requirement item, which also has its own unique ID. This is a global identifier. It identifies a specific record in a large repository individually by using a global unique identifier. So the idea here is that users should be able to give that ID, and we should be able to jump to that specific record either in a tree view, which is what we were looking at, or in a detail view. So you can open a project or item type or an item in a detail view where you can see the hierarchy as a breadcrumbs on the top, or you can just jump over to the tree view in which you can see the same item where the entire hierarchy for the product or the project can be visualized on the left hand side, and users can just simply click on an item to get to the actual record. Let's go back to the concept. So now we know that these are the 7 different types of records, or different record that has a globally unique identifier, and we should be able to allow user to jump to any of this specific record. Now, when we do the implementation, we have to think of many things. The first thing is which views will be supported. So we will have both detail view and the tree view. The default option that we will choose for the user will be the detail view. The reason being that if you have a large project, loading the tree view would require quite a lot of data to be included in the communication between the client and the server, which will have some degradation of the performance. That's why we decided to go for the detail view by default, but you can always change that and click on the tree view when you provide the ID for your record that you want to get to. Now let's talk about the go-to page behavior. The design that we have thought about is that a go-to page will be a simple page. It will have one text box in which user have to insert the unique record ID. It will also have a radio button selector, which allows you to select between default detail view or the tree view, and then there will be a button to click on, which is the go-to. Now, behind the scene, when you click on the go-to button, the idea is that user will be automatically navigated to that record if it is found in the repository and if it is of one of those 7 identified types. The next thing is we have a direct URL based navigation. So instead of user inserting the record ID in the text box, they can pass the record ID as a query parameter. So just simply pass in the ID as part of the URL itself. And when user does that, then we automatically try to identify that record and navigate user to that specific record in the detailed view, which is the default view. There are many benefits of using these direct URL based navigation because it will allow users to put those direct links in external applications, in documentations, in emails, and bookmark them and things like those. Navigating to orphan requirements items. Now, we expect that user will not go to orphan item that often using GoTo links. That's why the order in which we search for a record using the record ID is first to look into hierarchy based lookup, which means it will look for a project with that ID or the requirement type with that ID or a requirement item with that ID. If hierarchy data doesn't have the record ID related information, then the next search will be on the baseline hierarchy. So we are looking for the baseline item type or baseline item to look for that specific record. And only when the hierarchy based lookup and baseline hierarchy based lookup cannot find the record, it will go into the orphan item and look for the record in the orphan item. This is how we thought will optimize the overall performance because we don't want to load the server with a lot of query related load when we know that user may not be utilizing GoTo feature to identify the orphan item. Most of the time they will look for the project, item type and item record when it comes to finding the record using the GoTo capabilities. The next thing is embedded GoTo links for cross-referencing requirements. Now, because we allow the GoTo link to find those 7 different types of records, one can create a GoTo soft link and insert it into description of existing record itself to create certain soft link between 2 records that are stored in the same repository or across multiple repositories as well. So that's the idea, that enabling the GoTo link will allow users to embed those links into the documents or emails and communications, but also in the OpenRose description itself, which is nothing but a rich text field. And when you insert a link which is considered as a soft GoTo link, then you can actually describe why you are inserting that link, what is the purpose of that link, association between 2 records that you are trying to link together. Then we have strategic importance of GoTo efficiency. Now, it is very much possible that the GoTo link will be used by many users, by many customers, by many teams. And we need to be smart here to make sure that we implement the GoTo feature whereby most of the work is done on the server side. And that way we improve the performance of the overall GoTo capability as well as reduce the load on the server itself. The client side implementation will be pretty much minimal, mainly to allow record ID parameters to be passed to the server side processing logic, and the client side will receive back information about how to navigate to those specific records which are found in the repository based on the record ID that is being provided. So that's how we strategically design, or we are thinking of designing, this particular implementation of GoTo links. And in terms of non-functional requirement, we believe that the server-side processing is very important. The system shall perform the primary resolution of the record ID on the server side, minimizing the client-side complexity and ensuring efficient access to deeply nested records. And when we process the data on the server side, we respond back a standard data transfer object back into the client, and then the client side can decide which view to go to, whether it is a default view or the tree view. So there are some very minor navigation related logic that the client application will have on the client side software, but the main processing in terms of finding the record and sending the information about the record to the client will be on the server side. This is how we believe that the non-functional requirement of efficiency and performance can be implemented utilizing the API layer of OpenRose application. And that is this conclusion. So you can see that a one-liner statement that we had, which is allow users to go to a specific record by providing its ID. That's how the user tells us what feature they want. We had to sit down and write this entire concept, entire document, and think deep about not only the functional requirement but also the non-functional requirement, or the different types of data that we will support, how we will design this, how we will allow passing the actual record ID as a direct link embedded in the URL itself, and then simply allow users to navigate to those records if they are found in the repository. I believe many users who use OpenRose for software or non-software products and services and projects will have to actually capture the requirements more in detail, like the way we are doing it here. I hope this video was useful for you. Please share the information about OpenRose with others. This is a free and open source application, and we hope that many users, individuals and teams will be able to take benefit of all the efforts that we are putting in making OpenRose as your requirements management tool. Thanks and have a great day.